All right, thanks, Jane. So we just started the recording. It's the September edition of the OCA PGB. After we had a fairly quiet summertime, as a lot of different organizations have. I think things are starting to pick up again in the fall. We've got two important topics here to discuss today. And then, as always, if there's anything else anyone wants to add to agenda, we can definitely do that. So the two topics we're gonna cover here are, so first Jane's gonna go through a high priority opportunity that we have with RSA next year. And the reason I say high priority is because the response is due in a relatively short period of time. Jane will go into the details, but it is a very attractive opportunity for us. So I think that various organizations should definitely look at seeing how they can contribute to the effort of preparing the proposal that we're about to discuss. And the second exciting topic is we actually have a new project proposal again. Those are always a great thing to have. And we've had a number of them actually come out in 2023. Mixed results on those, actually going through the complete process thus far. But this one, I actually got a preview of it earlier this week. It's from our friend Vasilios, well known to most folks in Oasis, sits on the Oasis board of directors, participates at OpenC2, Cacao, CTI, and pretty much every other cybersecurity TC. His new startup company that he has a team member working with him on has developed an open source Cacao playbook editor. And it's they would like to home it in the Open Cybersecurity Alliance. I sent out to the mailing list a link to the draft proposal. When we get to this part of the agenda, I'll share it here on my screen and we can kind of go through a preliminary with the group here. But this is obviously just the preliminary discussion, but essentially this is the proposal that they plan to submit. I think it's great. But looking forward to hear comments and discussion on that in advance of them submitting an official proposal. And those are the two main topics. And Duncan, I see, can you say more which ones did not pan out and why? So what I'm referring to there is, so one of them was the Spider Risk project, if folks can remember. So Spider Risk is an open source project for measuring risk during the DevOps lifecycle and threat modeling, essentially a threat modeling project. And great piece of open source technology. And, I think definitely aligned with what we're doing here in the OCA. Nothing bad to say about it at all. But the organization that was chaired by the University of Northampton, they weren't able to. They kind of made a last minute decision that they thought that an OCA project and doing this in Oasis, it was a step too far for them at this point in time. So they don't think they're completely ready for it yet. So they're taking a step back, re-looking at what they want to do with the software, and they may come to us again next year, right? So they voluntarily withdrew themselves from consideration because they weren't quite ready to join the OCA. So that was that. That's that, Duncan. So before we give the mic over to Jane, any other topics for the agenda this week that people want to bring up or raise? All right, fantastic. All right, Jane, did you want to start with the RSA?
Sure. First, I just want to say that we're looking forward to Borderless Cyber next week. Sorry you can't make it, Jason and Duncan, but thank you, Mark, for coming and representing OCA on the program. Also, Charlie Frick will be there. So there'll be a couple OCA members there, which will be great. Mark, if you have any last minute things, don't hesitate to reach out to me, but just wanted to thank everyone and make sure everyone who will listen to this recording knows that OCA will be represented at Borderless Cyber. So excited about that. as far as RSA, so they sent me a note saying that this is in advance of any kind of formal outreach, I guess, and they don't really tend to do formal outreach when it comes to seminars, or, they call them seminars, which are pre-conference workshops. They typically run anywhere between 2 and 4 hours. And they have asked for us to submit a proposal. We're going to submit 2 proposals. One, we would like to focus on OCA. So I'm looking for volunteers from OCA, from the PGB, or whomever else, that may have an interest from the OCA community in helping me craft such a proposal. I do have a list of things that I would like to include in the proposal that I will circulate to the volunteers, but I am hoping this week to get volunteers because we do kind of have a tight turnaround. They didn't give me a deadline per se, but they said mid-September. So I was shooting for somewhere around the 15th to have something crafted that could be reviewed and at least in a good situation. So they do tend to like very creative formats for these workshops. They don't really like the stand up, and present. They want it to be more interactive with the audience. So that kind of has to flow through all of our through our proposal as well. So I guess, one thing, and just to let everybody know, RSA is in May this year. I know they kind of hop around a little bit. I thought they were going back to February. So we do, obviously have time to prep it, but they will be making their decisions in mid-September, as they told me. So I don't know if that will shift, but I want to be prepared. The other thing, when I was talking to Jason initially about this, before I sent the message out to everyone, we talked about, the confusion and where OCFS fits within OCA. And we get a lot of questions when we're on the ground about how the two collaborate or don't collaborate and where they fit together. So we thought, we kind of put our heads together and thought it would be great. Obviously, we want OCA to be the top level, but maybe invite someone from that community to come in and, talk about how they fit, knowing that they are just a smaller piece and OCA is trying to do something way bigger than what they're trying to accomplish. So, I wanted to get thoughts around that and ideas from everyone. So I guess my 2 questions are thoughts about the topic, and then thoughts about and then volunteers. I don't know if there's anyone here that wants to volunteer. I know Jason already said he would volunteer. So I'll stop talking and answer any questions.
So, I mean, one thought, Rose, is, that I think when you go talk to Rich, right? Like this is like Jane said, it's like we want to create a kind of dynamic agenda, interactive, right? And I was kind of thinking, some of the material that the guys have built out in the past for Kestrel at Black Hat Arsenal, right? They could actually potentially turn into a lab. Right. You could turn into a lab that could be run at this event, and that could be part of the agenda. I mean, that would be a huge opportunity for them to go and do that if it was accepted.
Nice. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. And I think there's, I think this is a huge opportunity. We've got to try to get as many people helping Jane as possible because the time window is so short. So I'm going to take the action, Jane, to I'm going to email after. So I'm taking notes here, and I'm going to email all the PGB reps after the call, kind of say, on these 2 different topics, and kind of specifically asking, if there's anybody on their marketing team or someone who can, help with the event, because I think it's in everyone's best interest to try to do whatever we can, because all the folks who sponsor the OCA will now have at least some name recognition to this, right? If we get accepted. So that's all my thought is. So are you going to set something up on the calendar, Jane, to like next week, or
So next week is going to be tough, and this is where it comes down to obviously Mark and I will be over in London next week, and what I really wanted to do was to start by sending out, and maybe I should just include everyone on the PGB, the items that we need to put in a proposal. And then I need someone from the team to start crafting something. I mean, I'm happy to craft it. It's just going to be delayed, and I don't want to be delaying anything because I'm going to be traveling. I'm going to be tied up for a good portion of it. So I'm looking, I guess, for sort of a team leader that can take my place next week at least, to get the ball rolling on text. What does this thing look like?
Yeah, and I mean, I think as we do that, right, the other reason we need some buy-in from the folks is like, we need to make sure that we have at least the notional commitment from the various organizations that they can support whatever we're putting down, right? Like if we put down, hey, run this threat hunting workshop, that's essentially committing, probably IBM to send at least one person to RSA to do that workshop, right? So and etc. Right? So we just need to make sure, if Duncan puts down his supply chain game he's talking about, that's committing him to go to it, right? So we, I can create an agenda with all kinds of things, but like if I start throwing names on it, like I can't commit other people, you know what I mean? So that's why I think it's important we try to get everyone involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the big decision that we need to make as well is, do we want to include a representative from another organization?
Yeah, so
Or
more details about that, right? So just so that everyone can understand what I was thinking, essentially what I was suggesting is when we create this proposal, that the proposal isn't like OCA, what are these called, tracks or day workshop, what's it called, Jane, the seminar, what is the format of the event called?
they call them seminars.
Okay.
They're in advance of the program. However, they will be promoted as part of RSA, which is the most important thing.
So if anyone's familiar with the Cloud Security Alliance Day that they always have in advance of the RSA, this would be one of those, right? Same idea. So what I was suggesting was, instead of saying it's an open cybersecurity alliance seminar, it's more, Duncan just stole the words out of my mouth, right? So this is what I was saying, is more like, it's more about cybersecurity interoperability, or cybersecurity ecosystem building or something, internetworking, like he says, that type of thing, hosted by OCA, right? So we're hosting it, but it's, we're inviting other communities in, and we can invite OCSF. We could invite, I don't know, some other community, if we could think of one that's relevant, like OWASP. Maybe OWASP wants to come in and talk about Cyclone DX. I don't know. We something to that effect. So it sounds like Duncan's on the same page. And that was the proposal, because then I think if we can do that, we have a short time window, but I think we could probably get OCSF interested for sure at a minimum. Maybe we can get OWASP.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I think when we developed the proposal, and I mentioned this to Jason, I think it's really important to make sure that OCA is front and center in the mindset that we're trying to accomplish something a lot bigger than some of these other organizations, but not, not saying that they're not doing great stuff. It's just our purpose is much bigger than just what they're doing in their little siloed world kind of thing. But this is how it fits within it. I think that's the message without being catty. It would be good for OCA if we could convey that.
So when is the submission deadline? Because I think
So,
to Jason's point, if we expand the scope to get other organizations involved, whether it's OCSF or OWASP or whoever, then like that's going to take some work to get their commitment and buy-in. Or
yeah, well,
could
this
we
is also-
propose that,
yes,
get accepted, and then go do the work?
yeah, that I think that's, I mean, I don't mind mentioning it to them if we want to reference them, but we, this is not a committed thing yet. This is a proposal. We've
Right.
just never been asked to provide a proposal before. So this is a great opportunity for us, and I don't think we'll get it again. So my goal is to have something ready to go by the 18th. I don't want, they were kind of loosey-goosey on when. They said mid-September. So if we can get something crafted by the 18th, that would be my goal, because I don't want them coming to me and saying, where's your proposal? And then I don't have it. So we have to target a specific date in order to get that done.
Jason, you're muted if you're
Sorry.
carrying on.
What I would suggest, Jane, is this more like a 9 to 3 or 9 to 5 agenda? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I think we may have some flexibility on that front.
Well, what we can do, we can go look at what the CSA summit was last year. I think that it was like 9 to 3 or 9 to 4, whatever. We'll find out what the time is, and then create a just placeholder agenda that fits that time. It's probably about 6 topics, and I don't think that's an issue going to be that difficult at all to go and do that. And we can put one for OCSF, we can put one for Cyclone DX and Dependency Track, and we create that agenda, and then we flesh it out a little bit, and then we send that off to representatives from those orgs, and we say, we've been requested by RSA to submit something. This is the what our plan is, hosted by, convened by the Open Cybersecurity Alliance, cybersecurity interoperability workshop, whatever, we'll figure it out. Would you like to participate? Here's some sample topics we think would be highly relevant. Maybe one of them's a panel. I don't know. Like that'd be kind of cool. It'd be cool to have a panel that was like OCA and OCSF in it, and then someone asking like challenging questions. We can actually answer them.
I think those are, I mean,
and actually I would throw Heimdall in there as well.
Well, you know what would be interesting if you did a panel, if we get a moderator that's not afraid to ask those questions, like someone from the press, or who could really pick, who could really dive deep and they're not afraid to. So that could be interesting, I think.
Yeah. It'd be great to have an analyst if someone had time, but if we could convince them to do it, like John Olstick or somebody.
I think if we get to them early, I think we have a good chance at it. I think the last time we tried to get him, it was kind of late in the game, and it's just harder.
Yeah. So here's what I'll commit to. I will commit to doing a draft and sending a draft out by Monday, right? A draft that people can throw red ink all over as a starting point. And then,
Right.
you know, I'll create a draft. People can start, and I'll send it to the mailing list. People can start throwing red ink over it, and we'll email that draft out to the various PGB reps who haven't showed up, who made it today. And you know, hopefully, maybe you guys, I know you guys are really busy next week, but maybe people can look at it out of band, or you know, while you're listening to talk that's really boring. I'm just kidding.
There are no such things like that, Jason.
Not mine though.
Not Mark's. No.
Jason, I need to get to you, and I'll try to do that today, the list of things that I think they're gonna want in this proposal. Just so you have those. and you
Okay.
know
Yeah.
what
I
we
mean,
talked
I'm
about.
not, yeah, sure. Of course. I was just going to create a kind of notional agenda of what we could do on that day, you know, not the whole proposal, but, yeah, sure. Of course.
Okay.
Okay. So that any further questions or commentary on that one? If not, we can move on to the new project proposal. Yes, no, last chance.
No, good. Go.
Okay. All right, let me just open this link up and share my screen. So I mailed this link out to the PGB mailing list shortly ago. And I'm just trying to zoom in here. And can people see this okay?
Yeah, and I read it before the call.
So high level description here. So this, as I said, Vasilianos and his team have created this open source Cacao playbook editor. You know, I'm assuming that everyone on the call knows what Cacao is. If you're not familiar, Cacao is a OASIS standard for cybersecurity orchestration playbooks. So think about the SOAR space, right? If you're a SOAR company and you're creating cybersecurity playbooks and you write them out in Cacao, that creates interoperability. And Vaughn's company Sidearm, for example, has created some open source libraries to help to make working with Cacao easier, and they've also created a converter to convert BPMN to Cacao, which is fantastic. So what Vasilios and team are doing is actually a visual editor, right? So you know, anybody who's kind of dealt with these kind of workflow things, you know, you kind of see how this works. There's a canvas, and then you add steps, start and stop, and you can have multiple different actions in the middle. You can have branching, you know, if that and the other. And they're able, you know, so I saw a live demo of this. So this is all working, it's implemented. It's available today, right? And they have the open source version, and then they've got kind of, you know, some premium features that are, you know, they're not sure what the model is going to be yet, but the premium features aren't all in the open source. So this is kind of a standard, you know, open source version, and then there's a more premium version. So they're interested in coming in to putting this in the OCA. You know, we did discuss, well, it needs a sponsor, and they're actually going to join the OCA as a sponsor to sponsor this project. This is new company Scientific with a C. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. So I'm not sure if anybody here read through the document, has any questions. You know, obviously, you know, I'm probably not the best person to answer questions. You can always answer them here in the feedback piece of hack.md. But this is essentially kind of a preview discussion They plan on doing an official submission of this very soon. Once they officially submit it, we can then schedule a demonstration of it for people who are interested in seeing the live demo, and then do a vote on whether or not we want to accept. I see Duncan's already voting accept. But let me back to panel with hard question moderator. I suggest, oh, that's the panel moderator. Okay, sorry, Mark, you had a question?
Yeah, I didn't hear you completely. Did you say that they're going to have this is going to be kind of a open source version, that they would also have a premium or a paid version as well?
Yes, it's kind of similar, to how, IBM has Stick Shifter, and then that's integrated into their products, right? So this is the open source base of their Cacao editor, and they're building something like bigger around it. That
Okay.
they're planning on doing something with. I don't, he kind of showed it to me, but that's not the real discussion. So we didn't go into huge details about what they're doing with their strategy or whatever, because it's none of my business.
Yeah, I just wonder if, as long as this can be fully utilized in its open source form.
Oh
then...
yeah. I mean, I think that's something we need to make sure we do our diligence on, of course, but knowing Vasilios, I have full confidence that that's the intention. He did, they haven't said here in their proposal yet which license they're going to use. I assume he just hasn't chosen yet, but I mean, when they submit the final one, they'll have to pick whether this is Apache or MIT or whatever. So I'll definitely be pinging them, make sure they know that which parts need to be finished here. But I think they understand that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great. I think the more things that we have under the umbrella, the better, and keep stitching it together.
Yeah, I'd agree. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't bring it into the OCA. I think it's a great little project that actually makes steps to making Cacao and OpenC2 actually usable. The other big step that we need to do, I mean, this is kind of going outside the OCA, but something I'm going to start pressing in the OpenC2 TC as I'm going to get more involved in it, is trying to figure out a strategy where we can actually get more of the actuator profiles defined. Because that to me is one of the biggest problems right now in OpenC2, is there's hardly any actuator profiles, which means it's actually really hard to implement in any usable way. Like we're looking at.
I think I can talk now. My numbness has gone down some. 100% agree. Just somebody's got to make them. That's the issue. That people are hesitant to make them for other people.
Yeah, I think.
But I just not even I.
Yeah, so I agree, Duncan. Like it's work, right? Someone's going to do the work. It's easy to stand on your mountain and talk.
Right, and it's not even just doing the work. It's in whatever one is needed. Like there's an IDS actuator profile. I could go ahead and make it, but that's not like my expertise. And then I'm going to probably do it in a way that the IDS people are going to hate it. I mean, we need the IDS people to be there to do it. And it's a chicken and egg issue. We're not going to get them there if we aren't doing it. So we need some kick somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of ideas on how to hopefully help with that, right?
Well, the cacao stuff really will be the kick, I think. So I think this stuff's all great.
Yeah, definitely. Like where I'm running into this, just to be frank, is like I'm trying to get some of the stuff implemented in Cyware. And in order to implement it, as I kind of dig under the covers, I'm like, well, this is going to be a problem. So that's my motivation.
All problems are opportunities. You could look at it as great. You can make the actuator profile you want to be the way your company does it. No one's going to object, so that'll get it started.
Well, that's the plan. That's going to be part of the kickstarting plan. The other thing that I'm doing, Duncan, is so Vasilios and I are both in this first SIG on cybersecurity automation. And today I proposed, I kind of described this to them, and I was like, why doesn't this group help define some of these actuator profiles? And they were like, yeah. So they were very interested in it. So I'm gonna see if we can do something there too, because I mean that whole community in first, this is exactly what they're doing. They're trying to figure out how to automate.
So why don't you have all them join CASP, and can you tell, do I have to pay, if I wanted to join that SIG, do I have to pay money or anything, or could I join that one?
It's literally a Zoom call that you join every month. It's I'm sure you're familiar with First. It's a first SIG that anybody can join.
All right, well, if you could send me info on that, because obviously automation's my thing, so anything to get this stuff going.
Yeah, I can do that for sure. I'll send you a link. All right, those are the two topics. Any other thoughts, comments on this project? Other than, but beyond this, like, I think this is going to run the standard process, and I don't see any major showstoppers. Like, so I'll work with Vasilios to get this document finished. They literally churned this out over the past 48 hours. So, it's been pretty quick. So I'll work with them to get it finished and get it over the finish line so we can have a ballot.
So here's a question. Which comes first, the sponsor or the project? In other words, they won't join unless we accept them, or we won't make it a project unless they sponsor it.
So I think that's a little bit in the air, but essentially this is a similar thing that happened with Spider Risk, right? We kind of tie them together in a way. Like, obviously they're free to join regardless, but the project can't go forward unless they join, right?
Yeah, because it needs a sponsor, so they have
Correct.
to be here to be a sponsor, unless
Correct.
an existing sponsor wants to sponsor it. I mean, I think it's a great idea, but I just assume they paid.
Yeah, correct. So, essentially the PGB can vote to accept the project, but the project is not actually accepted until they're a sponsor. That's essentially what it happened. I think that's what you're asking.
Yeah, so I guess
Because we don't want an
we
orphan
can't even submit it until, I mean, obviously it's going to pass, but I would argue they can't submit it until they submit it as a sponsor. The sponsor has to submit it.
Yeah. I mean, okay. Well, I'll talk with them. I want to try to, these things, like these ballots, and we always got to open them for 2 weeks, right? So I'm just trying to make sure I don't want to needlessly delay things, but
You can open it with them as, I mean, you have them on the screen I'm looking at right now. It says primary project sponsor, Scientific AS. That's fine as long as they actually become a sponsor.
Right.
I mean, you can open the ballot anyway, because they're in the process of joining, but it won't actually pass unless they're a sponsor.
Correct. So yeah, I mean, and Vasilios will have to work with Carol and to get that done.
Great.
And yeah, I mean, Vasilios is going to be at Borderless next week. So, Mark, you'll be there. Feel free to chat with him about this if you have any other questions.
Yeah, will do.
Okay. Any other last minute topics? If not, we can end early today. And like I said, I do plan on sending out these notes to some other folks.
Just one thought when you're talking about the OpenC2 actuators. I think, we've done this with stick shifter, obviously, and the stick shifter adapters. I still think OCA is just such a logical place to continue. I mean, building a repository of quote unquote adapters, actuators, transformers, things. And I think it's something we should think more about, and what other projects are out there that have tangent relationships to what we're trying to accomplish, that we could potentially, build repositories that like for those projects, even if those projects are external to the OCA, but make OCA the place where, interoperability comes to life. And I think there's a bunch of other things out there that we could start to bring together.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, I think there's lots of different things that we could eventually get into. I think, especially, I'm trying though to, I feel like we've got to take a couple of the current initiatives and really buckle down and get them more successful. Like we've got this great OXA proposal and project from Sequoia, but I haven't really seen much movement on it since we announced it at RSA, right? So we're coming up on 4 months now. So that's an example, right? We've got to like, what do we got to do there, right? Like that's something that I want to really start talking about at the next meeting in October is, some of these projects like OXA, we've got to get more things going. And yeah, and I mean, we've got to try to figure out too about what are the barriers to increased adoption and knowledge of things like stick shifter, right? Like how do we break down some of those barriers? I'm looking to get that adopted, for example, in Cyware, and no one was aware of it, right?
Yeah.
So I obviously I'm prejudiced in it, but I do think the CASP use cases, I mean, we only had the one for USC. We need to make more, but the actual, hey, here's real life value to end customers by tying all this stuff together. And then each of the things tied together need to do all their piece parts to make them, make it actually work. Like, oh yeah, you need this actuator profile we don't have in OpenC2, so we wave our hands. But it does show the value of that. I think we could do more of those value to end customers to get the end customers then saying, yeah, I think, everything should interwork this way.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree.
I mean, this is the industry-wide problem though, right? Like everybody's reinventing the wheel, building proprietary things.
Well, but that's the thing, the proprietary things. I mean, there was a recent study, I gotta go refind it again. I just read the other day that is something like the average company spend on integration has went up again. It's a great, marketing pitch for OCA on, yeah, you don't have to do that when you do things our way because we have standard interfaces.
You know what that study is, Duncan?
Let me go find it.
Think about it. Okay.
Who did I send it to? Oh, I sent it to the OpenC2 list. Let me I should have sent it to the OCA list as well. Let me find it.
All right. Any other closing thoughts?
All right, I'm just swiping my email to OCA into OpenC2 into the text. So just to be quick because we're about to drop, but the link's in there. But I also got a couple of quotes in there that I just yanked out of it. But it's basically an ad for OCA. I didn't think of that. I was thinking of it as an ad for OpenC2, but it's an ad for OCA as well.
MuleSoft Connect. I don't know. That's okay.
Nothing else for me.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining, and for those who are going, have fun next week, and we'll chat to you. If I don't chat to you again before then, a different forum, chat with you in October.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Everybody.